going to use a few items here. The elastic band and a towel that you can fold up about like this. Grab another towel that you can wrap around the chair legs if your flexibility isn't quite there. And of course, you need a chair. When you're in this position, you should be able to grab the legs and pull it closer towards you. If you cannot, that's when you have to wrap the towel around so you can pull it closer. See how my legs aren't 90 and there's that space between? You should put a pillow, if you don't have a chair around your house, that would help to keep your knees at a 90 position. I have to double the pillow here. And if your back has been very seriously injured and you're still recovering from that, but you're feeling better, this may not be an option for you. So you have to maybe find a shorter chair and then stack pillows underneath your calves so that you are not stressing your back in any way. Once you're in a comfortable position, turn your palms facing up towards the ceiling. We're going to start by taking deep breaths in with our abdomen here. We want our breaths to be about 5 seconds long because it's easier to calculate that way. Essentially, what I mean by that is the first 4 seconds should come from our bellies rising, and the last second, if needed, comes from our chest. So practicing that, do your best to take a deep breath in here with your belly. You should feel your belly rising towards the ceiling, and hold that. Now exhale and let your belly descend back towards the floor, and hold that before you inhale. Inhale, let your belly rise, hold, and exhale and hold. We are practicing what's known as square breathing. So we inhale for 5 seconds and hold for 5 seconds. Exhale for 5 seconds and hold our breath before we take the next inhale for an additional 5 seconds to complete the last side of the square. So at your own pace, concentrate on this, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, concentrating on 5 seconds inhale, 5 seconds hold, 5 seconds exhale, and 5 seconds hold. The reason why this is so important to establish, especially when it comes to lower back pain, weakness, is because the diaphragm muscle attaches onto the lower part of the back on the front. So now try to stretch out that diaphragm like a snow angel. Let your arms rise above your head at whatever angle is comfortable to you, so that your arm still is able to stay flat on the floor. If your back muscles, called the latissimus dorsi, the lats, are tight, you won't be able to go all the way above your head and just have your hands touch the floor. The tightness would cause that tension to pull your arms off. So just rise them as best you can over your head, and we will work on that later on. But in the meantime, enjoy the stretch and concentrate on your belly breathing. Now lower your arms slowly and clasp your hands over your head. Point your index fingers up towards the ceiling. And we're slowly going to reach our arms over our head and try to touch our hands on the floor. If this is too much stress for you, you can put another pillow or folded up towel right underneath where your hands would be. That way you can rest your hands on the towel and completely rest into the stretch. So repeat this process. And now try inhaling at the same time and working with your breath. As you exhale, you'll recover your arms back over your chest and hold there. So you're going to practice the square breathing as we have movement. So now inhale as your arms lower. Hold your breath. Feel that stretch. And exhale and recover your arms. And hold your breath to complete the last side of the square. And continue, inhale as they lower. Hold, really press that belly up towards the ceiling. Exhale, recover your arms. Same thing, inhale, lower your arms. Exhale, recover your arms. So now we're going to go a little bit quicker here. So just breathe at your own pace. Do not inhale and exhale as you are moving your arms. You're going to hyperventilate. Just breathe normal and really try to work those lats and stretching out those lats, warming up the back, warming up the shoulders. Going to do a few more. Last one. And now split your arms and lower them 45 degrees out to the side. Now let's warm up our hips. We're going to move them inward and outward right at our hip joints. So we don't want to be moving our lower backs to do the movement. We really just want to work on moving our hips here. So as you can see, my back is nice and stable. My chest is not moving and my arms are not being stressed. They're staying where they are. The only movement that is occurring is the inward and outward movement at my hip joints. Now, you just need to glide your calves along the seat of the chair. You don't need to pick your legs up. You don't need to worry about anything except for that movement at the hips. And just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Make sure to breathe with that belly. Use that diaphragm properly. The reason why it's so important to have proper hip mobility is because if we don't, that places way more stress on our tailbones, our SI joints, and our lower back. So it's very important to establish this. Now hold this one position. And now turn outward and hold this position. When you're holding, you're trying to get millimeter more movements every single time. So as you're holding this, you're trying to inch millimeter by millimeter by millimeter further. And same goes for this position as well. Remember to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just do the best you can. After completing that, we're going to grab the elastic band. You may have to adjust the positioning you are in if you're not flexible enough to tie around and reach around the bottom of your hips. In that case, you will need to push the chair away as I'm showing you here. I'm keeping my back nice and stable, my core tight, and I'm using the elastic band to wrap underneath, and my legs are tight together. You can see how I moved my ankles right by one another, and I'm tying the band. If you need to roll onto your side to do this, you can do so. Otherwise, inch the chair back up towards you, start to place your feet, and gently, in a controlled manner, pull the chair towards you so that you are at a 90-90 again. If you need to adjust the tightness of the elastic band again, like I am here, you can do so. Before we move on, we're going to practice contracting our core and how to do so. Essentially, you want to imagine someone is about to punch you right in the gut, and you clench your stomach to protect that. And now, what I want you to think of is bringing that belly button almost in a J stroke, like I just mentioned there, up and out. And if you place your hands on either side of your hip bones, when you contract as if someone's about to punch you in the gut, you really feel those muscles pop out. Last thing is you want to squeeze your pelvic floor as if you're trying to interrupt the flow of urination. Last step is to place that folded up towel right between your knees. So now, contracting the core, we're also going to gently squeeze the towel between our knees again. Make sure your arm is about a 45-degree angle and have your palms up towards the ceiling. So now squeeze the towel and release. I want you to think of three things: contracting your core, squeezing your pelvic floor, and squeezing the towel between your knees. So when I put my fingers up, 1, 2, 3, that's what I want you to be thinking of. And we're going to hold it for a few moments and release. One, two, three. Core, pelvic floor, squeeze a towel. You're doing all these simultaneously at this moment. You may have to, at the beginning, do one at a time, act as if someone's about to punch you in the gut, and then squeeze your pelvic floor, and then squeeze a towel. But we will practice this over and over again to eventually get to the point where you can do all three at the same time. And relax. One, two, three. Squeeze that core, squeeze the pelvic floor, and squeeze the towel. Hold that for a few moments. You should still be able to breathe in this position, even though your core and pelvic floor are contracted. And release. Few moments to recover. Take a deep breath in if you feel you need to. And now you're going to do 1 and 2 at the same time. So now your core and your pelvic floor at the same time, and then squeeze the towel. So core and pelvic floor, squeeze the towel. Hold that for another 10 seconds. Keep the palms of your hands facing up towards the ceiling. And remember to breathe. You should be able to breathe even though you are contracting your core and squeezing the towel. You should not be tucking your hips. And exhale. So you should not be tucking your hips or causing a backward rotation of your pelvis. Now again, squeeze the core and pelvic floor at the same time. And now squeeze the towel. We're building our way to contracting everything at the same time. The entire time you have to repeat to yourself, core, pelvic floor, towel. Core, pelvic floor, towel. So that you can make sure and continue to make sure you are contracting everything. Because oftentimes what's happening is we're only concentrating on one area at a time. So we have to constantly repeat in our heads this sequence so that we are contracting our core properly. And release. Take a few moments and now try to contract all three at the same time. So that's core, pelvic floor, and towel. 3, go. Try to hold that. Make sure your palms are facing up towards the ceiling. Remember to still breathe. Your belly should be slightly rising. If you feel like you're breathing with your chest is rising too much, you're not breathing properly, and release. Big deep breath if you need to. And again, contract 3 all at the same time. Core, pelvic floor, towel, all at the same time. Go. And hold that. Repeat to yourself, core, pelvic floor, towel. Core, pelvic floor, towel. Constantly re-monitor yourself. And release. Now we're going to do the same thing, but in reverse. So you're going to squeeze those glutes. At the same time you're squeezing your core and pelvic floor. And the squeezing of the glutes is what is pulling your knees apart. So you want to control that. You want to do it for 5 seconds. Hold for 5 seconds. Keep squeezing. And slowly control your knees back toward each other for 5 seconds. Watch your knees. You want the movement to be equal. So squeeze those glutes. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Squeeze that pelvic floor and core. Now slowly move your knees. They should be pulling out equally, and it should feel the same side to side. And after holding, slowly bring your knees back towards each other. Again, this needs to be simultaneous. You need to continue to squeeze your core and your pelvic floor. And your glutes are what is doing the movement. So you should feel your glutes contracting. So the easiest way to contract the glutes is imagine you're squeezing a penny or a dime or whatever coin in between your glutes, and you're making sure that that doesn't fall. So continue to squeeze, continue to contract your pelvic floor and your core as if someone's about to punch you in the gut. If it helps, as you can see me doing here, you can place your fingers on either side of your glutes so that you can make sure they're contracting. Otherwise, if you feel you have it, just place your arms back to where they were, palms up towards the ceiling. And constantly monitor yourself. Core, pelvic floor, glutes. Core, pelvic floor, glutes. Glute muscles are incredibly important when it comes to stabilizing the back. These muscles go over top of the iliac bones in the back and over top of the tailbone as well to stabilize these SI joints, to make sure that there's a strong base to support the lower back. Doing these exercises also causes what's called reflex inhibition. Reflex inhibition is just the contraction of one muscle that then the opposite muscle to that muscle we are contracting has to relax in order for the body not to injure itself. So take the example of the tricep and bicep muscle. If you're doing bicep curls, what will happen is the triceps will relax so that they don't tense up and get injured and risk being pulled or injured. So the same thing happens when we squeeze the glutes like we're doing now to bring our knees apart. We are causing the hip flexors in the front to loosen up and not pull tight to put extra strain on our back. We are relieving that extra strain on the back. And now squeeze the towel in this position as well. So now we're putting everything together. Squeezing our glutes, squeezing our pelvic floor and core as we pull our knees apart equally. Holding it, continuing to breathe as normal as we can. And as we slowly and in a controlled manner begin to bring the knees back towards each other, we continue and squeeze the towel as best we can, keeping our core and pelvic floor engaged. And repeat that process. Squeeze the glutes. Hold the positioning, core and pelvic floor should be contracting. And still contract the core and pelvic floor as you begin to squeeze the towel. Again, squeeze. If you need to take a break because you're new to this, you haven't done any exercise like this for a long time, and you really feel the burning, or you feel your core, you can't contract the same, or you're just feeling that it's getting harder to breathe, don't be too hard on yourself. You need to build up your strength, and you don't want, as I just showed, your pelvis to start curling inward. You want to maintain a nice neutral back, because when we're walking around, our pelvises should be rolled back as if we're sitting. We need to have a nice neutral lower lordotic curve, because that is what's best for the stability of the back as well as the shock absorption, so to speak, every time we're walking or moving. So if you need to pause the video, do so, take a bit of a break, take a breather, and try again either tomorrow or try again in a few moments. Keep that nice neutral back, core, pelvic floor. Squeeze those glutes to do this movement. And squeeze your knees together. Right, so now we're going to do a little bit of a dural release. So straighten out your legs as best you can and slowly lower. So don't allow your pelvis to curl underneath you. Your back should stay nice and straight and neutral, exactly where it is. And if you can, straighten out your knee fully. But as soon as you start to feel tension that causes your pelvis to curl, shut it down. Just stay at that range. I was a dancer and a gymnast, so my flexibility is just naturally a little bit higher than the average person. So the movement that I'm doing is ideally the goal, but it's not necessarily an option for people. And it is possible, however, to work up to that. So make sure to squeeze your core and pelvic floor as you do this. You want to protect your lower back. And if you can, flex your foot, point your foot, and bring it back down. Flexing the foot helps to not only stretch the muscle, but it also helps to stretch the nerves and the dura. So dura is a structure that encases your spinal cord. And oftentimes with a serious lower back injury or a serious trauma to the lower back, you have a lot of tension around the dura membrane on the inside of the spinal canal of your spine vertebra. And this movement of flexing and pointing the toe causes the dura to be pulled down the canal, down the leg, and then back, essentially in a flossing type of motion to help alleviate restrictions and adhesions that may be existing in the spinal canal around that dura membrane, and even down the tube of the sciatic nerve down the back of the leg. So do your best. You should not feel any numbness, tingling, or burning. If you do, you have to shut it down. You don't want to play around with nerve issues because they are very intense and you don't want to cause yourself to flare up. It is very easy to flare nerves up. But if you're just feeling a nice gentle tug, then you're doing excellent and you can continue to the best of your ability. Our goal here should be about progression, not perfection. Progression is key. Steady progression is what is best for your road of recovery. Rushing through things and re-injuring yourself is not a good idea. Just use your legs, push the chair away, gently lower each foot at a time, keeping that core tight as you do so. Now keep your glutes squeezed here, and you can move the pillow away and see how you feel in this flat position. If you're all good, squeeze your glutes and practice that opening and closing movement. Keep your core tight and your pelvic floor tight as well. Core, pelvic floor, glutes. The reason why we're doing this is because it's teaching the glutes to contract at a different angle. We want to train our bodies to do the best that they can when we're in upright position. The position that we were in before is known as the emergency back position. And therefore, this is the next progression to this exercise. So if you're having difficulty with this, don't worry, pause the video and just build up to it. Otherwise, follow along with what I'm doing. Continue to make sure your glutes are squeezing as your core and pelvic floor are staying contracted. Even though the movement is a lot faster here and we've picked up the pace, it's still important that you control this movement and that you're being intentional and not being sloppy and allowing your legs to just move wherever they want to go. You have to make sure you're squeezing the glutes to pull your knees apart, and you're slowly controlling the intensity of the elastic band together. Slowly remove the elastic like so, keeping that back straight, squeezing your pelvic floor as you're doing so. And let's roll over onto our side and push ourselves up onto all fours. So keep the core nice and tight. See how I did not arch my back there? I kept my back very, very straight. Now you can use a towel again. If you're on carpet, you're fine. But if you're on hardwood like I am, you might want to just reposition, just add a little bit more cushion. So this is the final step here of how I want to teach you how to do a hip hinge. So you're going to keep your core nice and tight, core, pelvic floor. And you're just going to start by squeezing your glutes. What a lot of people do when they squat, they primarily use the movement at the knees and not at the hips. You need to be able to do what's called a hip hinge. So squeeze those three areas, your core, pelvic floor, and your glutes. Because what we're going to be doing is pushing up with our glutes and standing essentially on our knees. So squeeze up like so. And now you're going to slightly lean forward and your hips are going to go back. And squeeze everything out. So keep your core tight the entire time and shift your hips back. So the position that my back is in here, you only come up to a straight position. You do not allow your hips to come forward. Keep up nice and straight, a neutral spine. And tuck your hips back. So you want your hips to move back first. So slightly lean forward and your hips are making a beeline right towards your knees. And squeeze your glutes up. So this is the type of movement you should be feeling when you're doing a squat, when you're about to sit down in a chair, when you're trying to get up from a chair. You are focusing on the squeezing of the glutes, the leaning forward of the body, and the hinging forward at the hip joints. So now we're, as you can see, tying everything together. We're tying in that contraction of the core. We're tying in the glutes. We're moving and utilizing that movement at the hips. And we're keeping that back nice and neutral. And continue to work here nice and straight. Core tight, lean forward, hips back. If it helps, watch yourself in the mirror on the angle as I am to make sure you are mimicking exactly as I am. So now, do a few more times. If you can, if you're tired, just take a little bit of a break and slow it down. Now from this position here, I want you to get up properly. So you're going to get up at your strongest leg and use your arms to push yourself up so that you don't injure yourself. I want to thank you very much for taking time to do this video. Work on it as best you can. Give yourself a break in between. So try not to do this video every day, because sometimes it takes up to 48 hours for delayed onset muscle soreness to show up. All that delayed muscle onset soreness is the small little breakage that happens at the muscles as they are rebuilding and getting stronger. Because when we utilize muscles and when we're starting to stress them, there is a little bit of micro damage that's very normal that needs to occur in order for the muscles to get stronger. If you have any questions for me, please leave that in the comments below, and leave any suggestions of videos that you would like to see from me in the future. And if you'd like to see if I release these videos, please subscribe so that you don't miss out. Thanks for watching.